joint webinar with Enable on proactively managing risk, security, and cost in the public sector. I'm Ian Montero. I lead the public sector and education business for ServiceNow across Australia. And it's fantastic to have you here along with our experts to enjoy this webinar that we've got for you today. First of all, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, and we pay our respects to their elders, past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. First of all, we've got a couple of housekeeping tips before we get started that I would just like to call out. Today's webinar is being broadcast live, so your audio has actually been muted to minimize background noise. Please ensure that obviously your speakers are turned on and your volume is turned up. Use the Microsoft Teams chat to share any questions that you have, and throughout the event we'll monitor those, and I will be providing those questions back during the appropriate times of the agenda. If you would like to make a comment, please obviously use the chat window, and as mentioned, there are going to be times throughout the session that we're going to be able to do roundtable feedback, so please keep the comments going. The agenda for today: we've ensured that this webinar provides you with a well-rounded synopsis of the most common trends and challenges in risk management and operational resilience that government agencies are facing in today's climate. Therefore, we've constructed the agenda to ensure that you get the maximum value out of this session from our expert panel. We'll also be demonstrating how government agencies and educational institutes resolve their challenges through ServiceNow IRM portfolio, and we're going to highlight 3 key capabilities of the IRM platform: regulatory compliance and change management, risk assessment and reporting, and the third but final is business continuity. Finally, we're actually going to have an open panel discussion on driving cost efficiencies and Q&A at the very end. As mentioned before, please feel free to send questions or comments directly into the chat window, and we'll monitor those and actually hopefully get to as many questions as possible before the end of today's webinar. Introducing our panel of experts that we've actually got. Obviously, as I said, I lead the state government business here for Australia for ServiceNow. I've been with ServiceNow for the past 7 years, and we've got some great customers across Australia who are obviously using our platform for their GRC needs. So we'll hopefully get into some of that also as well. Rizwan Saidi has recently just come on board to the organization in ServiceNow, and he leads our risk and security practice for public sector. Andre van der Merwe is from Enable. He leads the IRM as the practice director for Enable Professional Services. And then Vikram Khatri is the GRC lead consultant for Enable Professional Services also as well. Finally, we will be closing with Paul Thomason, who will be doing a summary of what we've gone through this webinar. Quick safe harbor notice, which we like to obviously put up. There will be some forward-looking statements that we'll talk to. Obviously won't go through this in total, but there are some forward-looking statements that we'll potentially be having, so please adhere to the safe harbor notice. Okay, recent events of data breaches and security incidents in the government sector has highlighted the importance of effective management of cyber and IT risks. A recent survey published on Australia's cybersecurity threat revealed some alarming statistics. 2.5 security breaches on average per government entity. 94% of organizations have seen increases in security breaches in the last 12 months. 96% have reported suffering security breaches in the last 12 months. Vulnerabilities exploited are OS and third-party vulnerabilities, meaning there's known vulnerabilities and known cyber risks. 88% of organizations stated that cyber attacks are becoming more sophisticated. 96% of organizations stated that there will be an increase in cyber spending in the coming year. And currently, organizations use 7 different security technologies to manage their security programs. Disparate systems, obviously all costly. While these statistics certainly validate the fact that cybersecurity incidents are on the rise and will continue to increase in sophistication, however, these are not the only challenges facing the public sector when it comes to risk management and operational resilience. Riz, you interact with chief risk officers of government agencies quite regularly. What are some of the mounting challenges that government agencies are facing when it comes to risk management, please?
Thanks, Ian. Yes, you're absolutely right. Cyber risk and cybersecurity incidents, usually result in a consumer privacy breach and are therefore at the front and center of news, right? But the reality is that there are several challenges that government agencies and educational institutions are grappling with at the moment. As you know, there have been an influx of investment in the digital transformation space in the government sector. And that has dramatically increased the cybersecurity and the IT risk posture. There are a few challenges that I've sort of highlighted these on the slides here. Regulatory changes is a massive challenge, right? There are regulatory changes that are happening all the time, which are changing the compliance obligations of government agencies. Every change in government policy brings a slew of change management challenges, and these really vary depending on a myriad of factors, such as the department's structure, scope of the changes, and the changes implications on existing processes and procedures. Government agencies have also got multiple suppliers, and vendor risk management and assessment is a big challenge, especially when you consider the increasing penalties that are arising from data breaches from third-party technology suppliers, or reputational damage associated with partnering with the wrong vendor. Pandemics and extreme weather is probably a topic that everyone on this call is unfortunately well aware of. We've seen it all these past couple of years, from COVID to bushfires to floods in New South Wales, hurricanes and cyclones in Queensland and Western Australia, and all of these, they create a massive risk to a government agency's ability to service its citizens and carry out its charter. But these challenges really are exacerbated by the fact that GRC programs in government agencies, they operate in an extremely siloed environment. And if I just go over to the next slide, it kind of shows the GRC landscape that government agencies have at the minute. So this slide basically perfectly encapsulates what a typical GRC environment in a government agency looks like, which is manual and siloed and reactive. So if you look across each of these groups, you'll notice that most of them have common objective and repeatable processes, right? They all need to comply with regulation. They all have policies. They all have risk registers. They all need to conduct their audits, assess their risks against vendors, test and monitor their control environment. However, the challenge is that each group meets these objectives in different ways. Some use spreadsheets, some have point solutions. It could be an audit management tool. It could be a point solution. It could even be a risk management tool acquired for a single use case. And all these inefficiencies in the GRC environment creates a lot of gaps, which lead to duplication of effort. And to bridge these gaps between all of these silos, people are actually forced to collaborate in systems that they are nowhere connected to, right? So all of this actually results in a long manual list of processes, which ultimately leads to human error, resource drain, and increased costs.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Riz. That's very insightful. So how have agencies successfully navigated through these challenges, please? Are there any best practices that you're seeing across government agencies, what they're actually deploying?
Yes, we have, Ian. So the solution to these problems has been known for quite some time, right? Which is in order to achieve operational resilience, you basically achieve operational resilience through an integrated risk management approach. Because integrated risk management helps businesses and government agencies in taking risk-informed decisions, which are embedded in daily work routine. They are integrated across the enterprise. So people and organizations and governmental departments, they can all work better. And this is why we're seeing that investing in risk and resilience uh, is the new norm in some government agencies. So COVID has been a great demonstration of how some government agencies have risen to the challenge and done just that. So I borrowed this slide from IDC to help explain what we kind of see happening in the market today, right? This model is great because it cuts across industries, geographies, organizations, and it defines the 5 phases of disruption overlaid with business focus on top and economic situation on the bottom. It starts with a disruptive event, in this case, COVID, and phase 1 is business continuity. So for most government agencies, the focus was to just keep the lights on and ensure that their business continuity plan is updated and it's executed. Once you get through keeping the lights on phase, you begin looking around, thinking how to optimize costs. Where can we best spend limited money we have? Where's the biggest return on the investment? Because in an economic slowdown, every business and government agency really thinks about cost cutting, right? So some spend more time in this phase than others, but everybody goes through the phase. And after the economic slowdown comes the recession phase, which is phase 3, where things aren't that good. This is the reality for places that were hit hard during COVID lockdowns and the closure of borders, which have had a massive negative impact on the Australia's economic performance, right? Last year, you might remember our overall GDP plummeted by about 7% in June. And that's where we started to see the focus in some of the government agencies shifting to building operational resilience, with risk management providing the foundation. And I also want to call out the operational divide in phase 3. And this is where the agencies further along in their journey, with lots of their services, capabilities online, have gained a significant advantage. And these government agencies have actually navigated this divide much better than other agencies. This is demonstrated by the gap between the curve and the dotted line in phase 3. And government institutions that are more mature with building resilience in their operations, they are much less impacted by the disruption. So the digital divide is truly the new norm that we are finding ourselves in. Agencies have realized that this is really an opportunity to adapt and provide great value to citizens, and do so in a much more cost-effective way. So to answer your question, Ian, yes, some agencies have absolutely recognized the opportunity to build operational resilience, have had great opportunities to meet their charter as a result of it. And essentially what we're doing is helping these government agencies accelerate these phases so that they can move on to making more targeted investments to reach that point of innovation in the 5th and final stage.
Right. Thank you. Great overview of the challenges and best practices that we're seeing across government agencies and what they're adopting to better manage their risk frameworks. Okay, that's great. So let's now change tact a little bit here. I'm going to hand over to Andre. Can you actually talk us through then how ServiceNow potentially solves these challenges through our IRM portfolio, please?
Thanks, Ian. Yes, the ServiceNow platform is a cloud-based platform that allows organizations to automate their business processes across the enterprise. The Now platform also provides capabilities and the infrastructure to help the organization to develop, run, and manage key applications and associated digital workflows across the enterprise. When we specifically focus on the risk and compliance products, which is highlighted in the orange ellipse, we also see that our integrated risk management applications can leverage the power of the platform, and benefit, directly from the Now Platform core capabilities as shown. When we see some of the benefits that organizations experience when they implement, the integrated risk management products, they directly benefit from this solution architecture approach from ServiceNow by elimination of IRM silos within the organization using a single data model, the ability to have a highly secure cloud-based data management, communications, and access management capabilities. Now let's expand quickly on the IRM applications in the next slide. Within the IRM product portfolio, within ServiceNow, you have purpose-built applications that is already fully integrated with the platform. So that single data model capability that we've referred to is already a direct benefit for these different modules. When you look at one of our key modules is the policy management module, where you can administer your typical policy register life cycles, policy exception life cycles, and policy acknowledgement campaigns. Specific to our demonstration today is also the compliance management module, where we can actually import and receive regulatory feeds to tell us there's changes in our regulations and obligations, and then actually manage those impacts in the organization directly, including the ability to perform control self-assessments. We also have a very powerful risk management module where you can perform risk assessments using different risk methodologies within organizations, and making sure that we bring in the automated capabilities from a control effectiveness assessment perspective when we perform those risk assessments. And we have really powerful risk management report capabilities within the solution. Some of the other key modules is the business continuity module, which allows us to really understand and manage our business continuity plans, our business impact assessments, and ultimately also manage those disasters and disaster events within ServiceNow. We also have a dedicated vendor risk module that allows you to really manage that engagement with vendors around their compliance in context of your risk drivers and key controls that they must adhere to. We also have a dedicated audit and assurance module that allows us to perform control effectiveness assessments and internal audit facing engagements. And ultimately, we also have a privacy module, which allows us to perform data privacy assessments and really look at the privacy lifecycle within organizations. We also see that these different modules gives us the ability to, just move to the next slide, gives us the ability to also look at specific use cases. For instance, we have the ability to directly manage your HR use cases. We can track policy compliance directly within the HR module in ServiceNow. We can also manage your cybersecurity controls directly and automate those controls directly. So a range of use cases are supported within ServiceNow IRM. With that, I'll hand over to you, Vikram.
I'll just jump in quickly. Thanks, Andre, for going through the capabilities on the platform. This is the bit that I always love, is when we get to actually show ServiceNow in action and actually do a live demonstration. So as part of our showcase and fireside chat, Vikram and Riz are actually going to demo 3 key capabilities of ServiceNow's IRM suite of applications. They're going to be demoing regulatory compliance and change management, risk assessment and reporting, and business continuity management. Over to you.
So before we jump into the demo, I'd just like to encourage everybody to go into the URL and just enter the number there. And what that will allow you to do is participate in the poll question. And so I'm just going to give everybody a couple of minutes to do that, or just maybe a minute to do that. And I think we're good to move to poll question number 1. Vikram, can you please scroll to question 1? the first poll question is, how would you rate the current capability level of your regulatory compliance program? Level 1, manual approach and single regulatory compliance enablement, example, COVID, SOX, or ISO. Level 2, semi-automated with multiple regulatory compliance enablement. Obligations are assessed and linked to risks. And level 3, automated and continuous regulatory change monitoring and internal control system reviews and improvement. Level 4, being totally automated with integration with audit and assurance management. So hopefully the results are in. And it shows that majority of the organizations are at level 1, and I wouldn't feel too discouraged by that, because 80% to 85% of the conversations we have with government departments, with educational institutes, are actually starting from level 1, which is predominantly working on the back of a spreadsheet or maybe a point solution. So with that, Vikram, if you can walk us through the demonstration of the regulatory change management capability, that'd be great.
Yeah, thanks, Rizwan, and welcome everyone from my side. So I'd like to walk you through the regulatory change management module within ServiceNow. So it was a nice segue, what Rizwan just spoke about. Regulatory environment is quite dynamic, so the changes that are coming in from regulators are also, increasing in volume and in terms of velocity of changes. So ServiceNow regulatory change management really allows you to streamline that process and ensure that the huge spreadsheets that you get typically from content providers like Thomson Reuters or LexisNexis can be managed in an efficient manner within the platform to ensure accountability and traceability of each change. So I'll show you how that actually plays out in real life in ServiceNow. So this is a dashboard for regulatory change or compliance manager. So you can see that quite a few new regulatory feeds, which are basically regulatory changes that have been provided by content providers like LexisNexis, have flowed into my organization. So I want to start taking action on these. So I can use these analytical dashboards, which are interactive in nature. So I can, for example, click on this number of new regulatory feeds that have come in to see what's going on. So one of the themes that a lot of public sector organizations are dealing with is obviously how do I keep my employees protected and my policies up to date in the times of the pandemic, which is COVID, right? So I'm going to search for any notifications that have come from regulators which are related to COVID. And as expected, you can see a whole slew of regulatory changes have come in. And if you look at the jurisdiction here, a lot of them are effective for all states in Australia, as well as some which are federally regulated requirements, which are also tagged as Commonwealth. And it's a lot easier for the users to consume this information because I have an alert type to indicate what are the alerts which really require an action from an immediate perspective versus what is something which is just FYI or news that I have to be aware of. So let me get into one of these alerts. So I'm going to drill deeper into a regulatory alert which was provided by ASIC. So again, no need to scan through multiple spreadsheets to get to the information. All the information is linked together in the ServiceNow platform. So you have all the details that the content provider provides, including details of when is this regulatory alert actually going to come into practice, what is going to be the impact on the obligations. This is, Rizwan mentioned this as well. So you really have that traceability here, and you can actually just drill down into the actual document that was published by the regulator as well. In this case, it was ASIC which has published the information. You also have visibility into what are the compliance obligations that are going to be impacted by this regulatory feed. So you can see the relationship here between the regulatory feed and the specific citation, which is the compliance obligation. So you can look at the compliance obligation as a whole to see what the overall impact is going to be on the organization. So you have that visibility as well. Just going to navigate back into the regulatory feed. So from a workflow perspective, there are a lot of options that you have. So based on your analysis, you can say whether this feed is applicable to your business or not. And if you're not sure, or if you think there's a bigger impact, you can actually initiate an impact assessment. This is a really powerful feature which allows you to assess the impact of this regulatory change on specific areas of business. So there might be some changes which are only impacting the human resources department versus procurement and production. So you can really do that fine-grained analysis and then see what the overall impact is going to be, and then take suitable regulatory actions. So let me show you now how how does this regulatory feed actually translate into actions from a governance perspective. So I'll show you an example of that. For that, I'm going to navigate back to my dashboard. And within the dashboard, I'm going to navigate to a specific area called regulatory calendar. So what the system does in a very user intuitive way is all the tasks or all the changes that have to happen, they are arranged in a calendar like view. So you have a clear idea on what item is going to become due on what date. So you can see here that Vikram has to complete action on this regulatory change task. So let's drill down into it and see what it's about. So here, there was, as part of the COVID response, any breaches have to be reported to the regulator. So that means I need to make changes to a couple of policies related to that topic, as well as send out notifications to all the employees. So within the regulatory change application, I can orchestrate now that this regulatory change requires a change in an internal policy. In this case, the security and privacy governance policy needs to be updated, and also policy acknowledgement campaign needs to be sent out. So just to summarize, what we saw is regulatory change coming into the system, the ability to analyze that at a deeper level, and then actually take real governance actions, which was in this case updating the policy, which was security and privacy governance, and then sending out a notification to all the impacted employees about the changes so that they're informed and they take actions accordingly. So I hope that gives you a quick sense of the benefits of the regulatory change management feature within ServiceNow. Over to you, Riz.
Thank you. It's time for poll number 2, because we are about to make a segue to a different feature, which is the risk assessments. So the question is, how much time do you spend on generating and reviewing risk management reports per month? The options range from option number 1, which is a few hours monthly, all the way on to option number 4, which is 2 weeks and longer per month. So 38% of the participants are in the 2 week or longer per month. It takes them about 2 weeks or longer on reporting, which is largely manual, and data consistency and other challenges exist. And about 30% of the participants take about 1 to 3 days per month, which is still a lot when you consider how imperative reporting is to building operational resilience. So that's a good segue to our next topic, which is risk assessments and reporting.
Yeah, thanks, Riz. So I'm just going to quickly switch over to risk. So from a risk management perspective, and what I'm going to start with is a dashboard which really brings out the integrated risk management capability that ServiceNow offers. So what the platform allows customers to do is to really report on and manage the entire risk process in an efficient manner, through obviously a single unified platform. And when I'm talking about risk here, it's not just about the risk assessments that you do on a periodic basis. It's the entire risk program, kind of brought together to life on this dashboard. So you have your compliance and control mechanisms, which roll up into risks which they mitigate. And then the risks again roll up based on how the organization hierarchy is structured to give you really a bird's eye view of what the overall risk exposure and posture of the organization is. And the great thing about these analytics is it's not just based on the current state of the data, but it also allows you to do snapshot based reporting. So how does that help you? So for example, now if you want to know how your risk posture has changed over a period of time. So how are you doing Q4 last year to Q4 this year? Or how are you doing in financial year last year versus financial year this year? So it gives you that comparative analysis of your overall risk posture, as well as really drill down information to see and identify where your potential problem areas could be. So for example, here you're looking at various operational risk metrics, which allows you to see how your high residual risks have changed over a period of time, how your controls basically have moved from ineffective to effective. Are there any failed risk indicators? Are there any risk events that have been reported? And also you can link the risk through to financial metrics as well. So for example, are there any changes that have happened on your gross or net loss directly impacted from a risk perspective? Then the familiar tools that you use like heat maps are obviously supported. But now where the difference is compared to when you come from a spreadsheets view or using a siloed system is really being able to drill down from all of these metrics to see what the underlying issues are. So for example, if I go from the residual risk heat map to see what my medium level risks are, I can drill down and then really see what are the businesses which are contributing to that risk. What are those specific risks? Who are the risk practitioners working on, who have come up with that rating? So if I just want to send out a quick clarification email to somebody, that information is available here, as well as obviously the entire, outcome of the risk process, which is your residual risk rating, control, and inherent risk rating. So what we have, seen with public sector clients as well as with other clients is we really have like a phased approach where you might start with a simple risk assessment methodology to start with, where you do more qualitative assessments, and then you move over time to a model where you're doing more qualitative and data-driven assessments. So potentially also bringing in obviously internal sources of data like financial data or procurement data within the organization, but also external data. For example, if you are a healthcare related organization, what are the healthcare statistics that are being published by the government, or what are the weather patterns that are looking like for the area that you operate in, and really to bring that data in and derive risk assessments and postures based on that, which serve as a better input to finally then take a call on what the risk assessment result looks like. So just going to quickly go back to my dashboard to show one more area. So apart from all these really good and interactive analytical visualizations and insights that you can get, you also can define really key result indicators and key control indicators which make most sense to you, from an operational point of view. Just highlight a couple of metrics, which risk management supports out of the box. Things like risks without mitigating controls. Yeah, this is a big one that we have seen for a lot of public sector clients, where the risk assessments have happened. The risk assessors have identified that we do need more controls, but has that action actually happened in the organization? How do you know about it? Or orphan risks. Yeah, so the risk assessments have happened. You assigned a business owner to them, but the business owner now has left the organization. So how do you identify those risks? So the idea is, the system is not just a register of things that you already know. It's basically is giving you insight and alerts and intelligent notifications to to ensure that you are really on top of things, and it allows you to gain insight into things that you might potentially miss. That's the real differentiator of using ServiceNow risk management. Now, the dashboards and analytical visualizations are all good, but what does risk assessment look like from a real assessment perspective? Yeah. So I'll give you a sense of that now. So one of the features that has been really appreciated across the board, especially for clients who have more complex risk management requirements, is what people realize is the risk assessment that is being performed by say an HR department is slightly different to how the financial department is doing it versus how procurement is doing it. So what are the key problems you face there? How do you model these slightly different variations of risk assessments in one system? The second thing is, once everybody has done their assessments, how are you going to roll up and aggregate the risk to get an overall view of the risk posture and exposure at the enterprise level? So both of these challenges are solved in a very effective manner within both of these problems are solved effectively in the risk management solution from ServiceNow, where there's a concept called a risk assessment methodology, which basically mimics your risk framework, and it actually allows you to support multiple risk frameworks at the same time without IT teams having to configure anything. So it's all business users who can configure things. Just to give you an example of that, yeah, you might start with a 4-point scale for your impact ratings, and you might realize 6 months down the line, hey, I need to change from a 4-point to a 5-point scale. And how difficult this is, in typical solutions where you need to now change how the heat maps look, how the reporting is being set down to management. All of these processes are actually managed within the application by the GRC teams, and we have successfully done this both with public sector and with other clients. And the factors, so for example, one of the assessments that you're looking at is, any typical ISO 31000 practitioner would know, this assessment pretty much fits that pattern. So you start from an inherent risk to a control to a residual. But the beauty of the application lies in defining what is that inherent assessment made of. What are the factors which are showing up, and based on the category of risk, based on the type of organization or type of business context, these factors can change. The scoring behind that factors can change. So you can see here, each factor has a qualitative weight and score, which is rolling up to an overall risk rating. So all of these can be adapted based on the process that is undergoing risk assessment. And the benefit is you can still roll up and get an overall sense of where the risk exposure lies from an enterprise organization perspective, even though the risk assessment methodologies might be slightly different. So that's really the key differentiator within the risk management space from ServiceNow. Establishing accountability and traceability to ensure where the risk exposure lies, and more importantly, who is responsible for it, and really identify from analytics not just typical risk register like information, but really insights into what actions you need to take. So that was a quick overview of the risk management features within ServiceNow. Over to you, Riz.
Fantastic, Vikram. I'm sure that will resonate with a lot of folks, because the poll results do suggest that it's a big challenge. So it's time for the third and the final poll, and the question of the poll is: where are you on your operational risk journey? With the option ranging from level 0, which I hope nobody selects, but all the way on to level 4, which is also something that I'm hoping nobody selects, because I suppose no organization is perfect. So that's the range. Change to 62%. 62% are in level 2. which is essentially, sure, we have a program, but it's manual and it takes a lot of time and resources. And again, I wouldn't be too discouraged by that result because 90% of the conversations we have in the market are with customers or to-be customers that are within that sort of range. Some have selected level 1, which is we talk about it, but do not have a formal program in place, which is in fact 21%, which is quite surprising and dare I say alarming. And level 3 is priority. So we have a mature program with some automation, but do have a lot of room for improvement. So over to you once again, Vikram, because the stage is right for us to set up the scene for operational resilience and business continuity. Before we dive into that, I do want to cover a couple of slides that kind of sets the scene for business continuity, because it's such a hot topic now. Every agency that we are talking to is undergoing some sort of a reformation program on their business continuity plans. So when you look at business continuity from a ServiceNow perspective, it's really there are two facets to this. So on the left side, you would see the prioritize, planning, and preparation stage, and on the right side is the contain, remediate, and resolve stage, which is essentially everything on the left is you being proactive, planning upfront for the disaster, and the left side is essentially, or the right side is essentially what you do when you declare an emergency, right? So in terms of the capability, what Vikram is going to show you is capabilities like BIAs. So your ability to prioritize your inventory of critical services, your processes, applications, vendors, physical locations. And the key here is to quickly identify the high-risk assets and the single points of failures with the greatest potential for business impact. The second one is your disaster recovery and business continuity. So allows you to develop your actionable continuity plans, your recovery plans for all your critical business processes and IT functions. And it also increases the redundancy and reduce the single points of failure. The third being the planning exercise, which is recovery management. So you can continuously test and improve continuity plans. You can improve the effectiveness of those plans as well. And just quickly onto the crisis management is where you can minimize unavailability of critical business functions, processes across the organization, minimize the financial impact, the reputational impact to your organization, as well as legal and regulatory impacts during a crisis event. So with that, Vikram, the virtual mic is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Riz. Awesome. Okay, so all the capabilities that Riz just mentioned, of course, are part of the BCM application. I'll just highlight a few key ones. So the first of all, the starting point for BCM and crisis managers, is the business continuity workspace, which allows you visibility into all the business impact analysis and continuity plans that you're part of. Any exercises that have happened in the past are also available here, as well as ongoing exercises that you may be conducting. The key differentiator, of course, in the ServiceNow platform is the ability to link your business continuity plans to really the data and assets and processes which basically drive successful continuity plans and successfully ensuring organizations come out of such events on the other side in a healthy and responsive manner. So one of the key things which allows that to happen within ServiceNow is really the efficient modeling of RTO and RPO, which are recovery time objectives and recovery point objectives, which are not based on just subjective assessments or questionnaires sent out to people, but really depend on data which is coming out from data sources within the ServiceNow platform, like the CMDB, which is basically a repository of all your IT-related assets and all of the interlinkages between them, as well as supplemented with data about your business processes or other departments which are related and will participate in recovery activities. All of that data can be brought together quite efficiently and effectively to ensure that the organization comes out of like a disaster level event. So the first thing I'll show you is just what a plan looks like within ServiceNow. So this is, for example, a BCP plan for handling critical business applications. So the key things that obviously that you want to do in a plan are really to identify what key assets and processes are impacted. So you can see all of that can be made obviously available within the plan. And this is, as I said, it's not just a register. These are basically coming in, for example, from your ITIL process and your CMDB into it. And I'll just show you a more detailed view of this in a sec. You have standard BCP like features about documentation of the plan, who's involved. The key differentiator again here is you can really do or create this plan not in a siloed way, but in a very collaborative manner. So you can see here that in a plan you have various contributors who can see the plan and really on a real-time basis make changes. And each person can be aware of what changes have been made by the other, which gives you a really seamless way of creating these plans when they are still in the draft state. Then obviously the BCP plans are all about ensuring that what assets are impacted, who are the teams who are going to be involved if that event hits. So you have recovery teams registered within the plan, as well as what are the specific tasks that these team members have to carry out, along with deadlines and all the dependencies between the tasks. All of that gets mapped and made available within the business continuity plan. The next thing which I wanted to obviously showcase is the dependency mapping feature within ServiceNow and how that really helps you to model your RTOs and RPOs appropriately. So let's look at this graphic, which is showing you your RTO gaps. Yeah. So if basically a disaster level event strikes, there are, for example, in the critical business application, certain activities that are going to take 3 days, 2 to 5 days to come back up to production. So let's drill down and see what's happening there. So you can see here there are a few data centers and facilities that are impacted. There's an Adobe Document Cloud application that also has like an RTO of 1 week. So if I look at, for example, the ERP prod instance, which in this case is your ERP hosted instance, right? It obviously is one of the more critical ones from an organization point of view. So if you drill down into that instance, which is the IT asset related to where your ERP application is hosted. So it's not just about the register level details here, but it really gives you a real-time view of what the health is. So have there any incident outages that have been reported? Are there any critical incidents that are actually open on this instance? You can see all of those details. Very important from an RTO and RPO determination is what are the relationships and linkages. And all of this, it comes up from other application areas within ServiceNow, like say IT service management, which you can use to generate what are called as dependency views. Yeah. So here, .NET ERP prod is basically the application that we were looking at. So it basically shows you downstream, for example, what databases or what data center assets it kind of utilizes. And then from an upstream perspective, it shows what are the business processes which will potentially get impacted if there is any downtime on this service. So it allows you to really plan out your RTOs and RPOs in a more efficient and data-driven manner rather than based off subjective assessments. So over to you, Riz.
And that is that. So that concludes our demonstration. Ian, the mic's over to you.
Thank you very much, Riz and Vikram. Great to see the ServiceNow platform in action, as always. and interesting poll results that was actually sent across as well to see where the actual market is at, and it's very much aligned to the conversations that we're having. So thank you very much for your participation. It looks like we've probably only got time for one question as part of our panel discussion. There was one question that was actually given to us that I think we probably should tackle, and then we'll move on to the summary. So the first question that we actually had that was sent in to us prior was, we are currently creating a business case for a risk management technology. However, our challenge is that risk management often is looked upon as a cost center within our key stakeholder group. How do we build a business case for investing in an IRM solution? So I think that's probably the one question we should really tackle. And Riz, if you can tackle that, and if we do have time to get to the second, then let's see what we can do. But let's tackle that first one, please, Riz.
Sure. That's it's a great question. As with any business case, it really boils down to communicating the importance and criticality of the risk management function to the enterprise, right? And it's even more important if the risk management function is seen as a cost center by the stakeholders, because the reality is that getting risk management right could be the difference between operating at a profit or operating at a loss. And so it's very important for risk managers and anybody who is working in the GRC space to be prepared for these discussions with stakeholders, and being able to articulate statistics such as frequent risk events that are happening in your business. For example, a work health and safety incident, right? What's the average cost of that incident? And be sure to include hidden costs in your business case, such as the cost of missed work, the benefits, the legal fees, for example. And the other thing I would encourage you to consider is to calculate the cost of a major disruptive event. So, for example, in New South Wales, we had a massive flood recently, right? It was deemed as a 1 in 50 year event, and be sure to articulate the importance of having business resilience, because remember, the only way to achieve operational resilience is through an integrated risk management approach. So those are my sort of recommendations for building a business case. But it's also very important to select the right solution. And let's take a step forward and consider the implications of selecting the wrong solution, which is like a solution that doesn't integrate with your system of records or doesn't allow you to break departmental silos through workflows. It's important because I can assure you, 1 or 2 years down the line, the same stakeholders, they will be asking you questions on the return of investment. And this is where I want to actually draw your attention to the slide deck. So Vikram, if you would click those through, in 2020, ServiceNow partnered with ESI Thought Labs to learn what organizations achieve by digitizing workflows on an enterprise-wide platform and how they do it, right? So we surveyed over 600 senior executives, C-level executives, and the respondents were based in 12 countries around the world, including Australia. And they spanned 5 industries. So financial services, healthcare, life sciences, government, manufacturing, and telecom. And based on the survey results, we developed a maturity curve that measures the rate of digital enterprise platform adoption in 3 tiers. So beginner, intermediate, and leader. So the leader being an organization which has the best workflow tool and is able to break down departmental silos. So what we discovered was that an organization's position on this curve is indicative how agile and resilient they are, i.e., the better technology you choose for your risk management, for your risk management framework, to embed your risk management framework, the better your benefits will be. So I've circled 3 right here. So Vikram, if you would just click one more. So basically, I've circled 3, which is decreased cost, improved decision-making, and better risk management. And risk management has actually shown one of the widest spreads, right? Even beginners saw a 25% boost. And as you can see in digitization, has a 16% advantage. So the overall takeaway is that digital workflows are, they're good business. Even if you're a beginner, if you're a small agency, you could see a ton in benefits, about 56% decrease in costs, for example.
Okay, thank you, Riz. Unfortunately, there isn't time for the second question, and would really like Enable to answer this, but it was in regards to the implementation methodology for IRM, and how do we ensure, it takes into account the maturity of the risk framework into account. It's something that we would like Enable to answer. I'm going to hand over quickly, actually, to Paul, however, to finalize and to close us out with 3 minutes left. Really conscious of time, and apologies, we've only given you 3 minutes, Paul.
That's all right, Ian. Thanks very much, and appreciate everybody's effort today. They've come together. There's a lot of moving parts. I particularly enjoyed the insights and certainly the dashboards and analytics that are demonstrated in ServiceNow. Certainly, I think it's to Rizwan's point, it's quite alarming that 71% of folks, which is in line with our observations, are still grappling with manual methods and spreadsheets. And that simply won't scale as the challenge is rising, which it is at an alarming rate. And when people talk about siloed tools, that in itself can mean email and spreadsheets. At the end of the day, I see a lot of people, a lot of talented people spending more than 50% of their time working on these reports, which, let's call a spade a spade. That's cutting and pasting of information and chasing information through emails or phone calls to get it ready on time, which is quite a reactive exercise. And often that information is subjective. So I think the real power punch here is, we're moving from siloed to a single source of truth and a single system of record. And those insights, are around accountability, transparency, and really in removing that subjectivity, which, our leaders are demanding more and more. And being able to ingest, whether it's LexisNexis or Thomson Reuters, we can ingest that content and really bring it to life in a workflow platform. So I think this was a knockout session, and I thank everybody on the panel and on the call for their contribution, and certainly appreciate the participation of everybody today, including the poll. So thank you very much. I'm sure there'll be more sessions in the series, and please email us with what you'd like to see. We're happy to put on more sessions and drill down into these areas in more detail. And thank you very much, Ian, for taking us through today.
No problems. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Conscious of time, we are dead on 1 o'clock. We will be sharing the slides with everybody, and we'll share all of our contact details as well, so you can reach out to us at any point from both ServiceNow and from Enable. Thank you very much.
Thank you.